Well,
yes, they are weird, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of the content.
Yeah.
So that's a good point to emphasise.
Anybody else before I come to Carol? David now, then Gareth. To start, as a member of the Audit Committee, I wanted to thank Dave and the team for these reports. These reports are important. They explain to us where attention is needed and where work is needed, and it's important that we're informed of that and we're able to recognise those areas. There's positive movement within these this year's figures. Some of them have gone up. So the limit of reasonable moving up. It's important to draw attention to that, and I know that there's work happening in terms of ensuring that people within the organisation are responding and are making those movements towards positive changes. Thank you very much, Gareth.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd just like to echo some thanks to Dave and his team, because certainly as chair of PFIG, we find your input, Dave, really invaluable. So thank you. And, you know, I think we've got a really good culture in this organisation now about welcoming both internal audit and Audit Wales. And, you know, they are on our side, basically. So I know we know that, but I think it bears repeating. Just got a couple of questions and one comment. I mean, these stating the bleeding obvious, really. But one is, I am concerned about, and this I think falls under my committee, the contracted patient services comments about that. And I'm also mindful that, and Steve obviously not well today, but that, you know, as director of performance and commissioning, he's got two extremely complicated and difficult briefs. So I'm sure, Carol, you're addressing that, but we do need to move forward on that commissioning. And I know you said, I think in public, but you know, that we've got a lot to learn about commissioning as an organisation. So, you know, I think this year, after the year coming, we need to see some improvement on that. And the other one is, and sorry, I'm sure this has been discussed extensively in the Audit Committee and possibly in your committee, David. But just one point on the consultant job planning, which I think is the area you're referring to that, you know, Carol asked you to look at and we knew was an issue. But I'm very worried about a comment that says that information was withheld. And I'd just like to, if it's appropriate in a public meeting, to sort of expose what that issue was. And the final point is just a comment, and it's like fresh news because it's something we discussed in PFIG yesterday. There's a comment, I think, on page 12 of your report about the lack of control over rebanding posts, and we had a very interesting report, as Dave knows, in PFIG yesterday, looking at the corporate centre, and I think there's some pretty strong evidence there that has been happening in a way that's not really sufficiently controlled, and Carol was reporting that action is being taken on that already. But just to say, that did definitely chime with the stuff we heard yesterday. So thank you again for that. And on that consultant job planning, I would be interested just to know if it's possible, and if not, outside the formal meeting, I'd just like to understand what the problem was.
I'll ask Dave to respond in a minute, but just in case some are unclear about the acronym PFIG, it's Performance Finance Information Governance Committee, which you chair, and that committee met yesterday. Dave, did you
Dave, any comments?
Just in relation to the holding of information, we request information for as part of our evidence, and we do send a supplementary request, and we don't request after that. So where that evidence hasn't been forthcoming, we just note that the management have withheld evidence for us.
So, I mean, it is really still, it's important, and it's a really big negative. I'm sure Carol will agree with that. But on the other hand, it's not saying that there was deliberate obfuscation. It's saying that you have not had assurance because you've asked twice and you haven't received the information. Okay, that's really helpful for me to understand that.
Okay. So I'll give Carol an opportunity to respond to that and other matters in a minute, but you know, Sri wants to commit. Sri.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The first question is, I think if you
I don't know what are the triggers for internal audit mid-year assessments? If you had done the mid-year assessments, you would have seen that the job planning is progressing. I do not know what would trigger a mid-year assessment. I wouldn't want to go into the job planning because that's a historic thing. It's been predated for a long time, but the new policy is being developed across Wales and it's being looked in through all Wales medical director across all health boards. It's not unique to BCU as such. I just wanted to make sure that is held across. I still want to know when there is audit, when internal audit, there are significant concerns. What would trigger a mid-year assessment that would say that we are actually progressing? Because I know that several of the serious concerns, we have progressed so much more. Now we know, for example, for job planning, we are already now 37 to 40% compliant. How would it know until